Yo, what is going on, guys? Your boy Kimbo here, and it's time for an epic discussion video. So in this one, we're going to be talking about Beyblade X Season 1. So my overall thoughts on it and such. So, anybody who doesn't know, um, go little history lesson with this. So Beyblade X starting in July of 2023 in Japan, getting the bays, and then shortly after getting the show and such with it, rolling out throughout Japan, having a bunch of different events, tournaments and such, and then also introducing like even the app with the rare bays, that being Cobalt Drake, the gold Hell Scythe, and the gold Leon Claw, which both of those two, they're starting to get rolled out in countries. So it being like the tail end, if you want to try and win them, they're going through different regions with different countries, getting updates with the app. They just recently updated it with the Taiwanese app, through the Portal Zero. They updated it to the newer prizes, that being Euro Pegasus, Hell's Chain, and such. But, Cobalt Drake, Hell's Scythe, Leon Claw, being like the rare bays and such with the app, and then getting the regular like BX bays, but then them introducing UX as well. So overall, with the series, we're talking about the show, talking about the products under TT, the products how they come under Hasbro, talking about all of it with this. So yeah, and my real thoughts. So getting into it, starting in Japan in July 2023, rolling out throughout the better part of the last year, and then finally a year later, rolling out here in, well, like the States and such, under Hasbro in June of 2024 is when they really started marketing it and everything. So about a year gap, which we usually see about this gap when it comes down to series like this, because rolling out in Japan where they're like originated and then coming over to the States about a year later, which it was just under a year. And they've gotten the ball rolling big time with things even under Hasbro. So yeah, we're going to talk about the TT side of things to start it off. So, of course, having like attack, defense, stamina, balance, all those different types of base. So, like attack types like Dran Sword, Dran Dagger, Dran Buster, Tyranno Beat, etc. Defense types, you talk about like Sphinx Cowl, Night Shield, Night Lance. Yeah, like bays like that. And stamina type bays, of course, having like your Wizard Arrow, having like your like Wyvern Gale, your bays like them, and then you've got like your balance type bays, so like your Vice Tiger, Leon Claw, and just balance in general being unpredictable. But showing off the triangle, it's really like a big game of rock paper scissors. That's how it's always been with Beyblade. So whenever anybody asks me what's the strongest Beyblade, I'm like, there's honestly no strongest Beyblade. It's rock paper scissors with it. It's just about knowing your Beyblade knowledge and just doing what you can when it comes to battles, and that's the beauty of it. But then balance types being like combinations of all three, like attack, defense, and stamina, but in their own different ways, and they're definitely unpredictable and wild. But also having like their Achilles heels with each of them, like their attack, defense, or stamina, having that balance with it. So yeah, that's just one of the amazing things with the game is just how much balance there is with it. And my overall thoughts on like the base. So we've seen like bunch of bays go through drawn sword, Hell Scythe, Wizard Arrow, like we got a bunch. Night Shield, Night Lance, Shark Edge, like you talk about Leon Claw, Viper Tail, Rhino Horn, just so many different bays that have come in. Like the list goes on and on and on, dude. Phoenix Feather, Phoenix Wing, Sphinx Cowl, Unicorn Sting, Hell's Chain, Drawn Dagger, just so many bays with it. It's freaking awesome to see. One thing I love about this is that bladers can have multiple bays, because in real life you have like deck setups and everything, which we've seen throughout history with things like every single gen, like people having deck setups and stuff, even come like going to tournaments, and it's so cool seeing how they actually implement that with the show, like bladers having multiple bays that they could switch in between, because normally you've seen it where they've had like one bay or a bay that switches modes and stuff, but never flat out completely switch their bay, which is awesome to see with this generation. So like in a deck set you can have three bays, like bladers having three bays, except for multi at this stage, like I'm setting them up that way, because you have like Bird, who has like Hell's Scythe, Hell's Chain, Hell's Hammer, three different bays with that, or if you go under like the Hasbro names, like Scythe Incendio, um, Chain Incendio, and I'm sure it'll be called Hammer Incendio when it drops. Hell's Hammer. But then you've got like drawn sword, drawn dagger, drawn buster, or you talk about like sword dran, buster. Well, yeah, sword dran, dagger dran. That would be buster dran. So under TT, you know how you have the name drawn sword, drawn buster, drawn dagger. It's flipped under Hasbro. So Hasbro dropping it, like I said, about a year later, but they switched the names like backwards to forward. So it's like sword dran. So it'll be like how there's dagger dran, buster dran, or like hell scythe, instead of it being like scythe hell, scythe incendio, because they don't want to use hell for it. You know what I mean? But you see it even with that. Arrow wizard. So then like wizard arrow, arrow wizard. But then they switched it up from wizard rod. It's gonna be wand wizard. But like basically like forwards, backwards, and Hasbro switched it up a little bit. Of course, switching the names and stuff between companies a tiny little bit, but for the most part they're keeping it the same, except just flipped the other way. So, even name wise, really, really solid. So, the products and such, it's really, really great. Like it is 1-to-1 with both companies. So we've seen it during burst, like during Plastic Gen. I think for the most part they had things like down to a T, and they didn't really switch them up at all. I wasn't like I was too young for Plastic Gen when things did come out big time. Those are like my Pokemon Tech Deck days and stuff. I got into Dual Masters a little bit when I was younger. A little bit of Beyblade, but I had the electronic ones with the Stadium. But talking about Metal Fight, I have Metal Fight knowledge. Y'all know I've been doing this for almost 13 years. Came in during Metal Fight Beyblade. During Metal Fight, it was 1-to-1. So TT and Hasbro putting out like same weight quality when it came to the bays with the metal. At least for Metal Fusion and Metal Masters, they did so honestly perfectly. It's just known under Hasbro like parts wearing a little bit. That's what it was notorious for. But still, like you talk about the weight and everything, 1-to-1 with a little bit of switch ups. Even like they switched up like the PHW bays. Instead of doing PHW, they did like hybrid wheel bays, except switched them up. So they did like Hyper Aquario instead of PHW Aquario, Fury Capricorn instead of PHW Capricorn, those types of things. But you talk about like Galaxy Pegasus, Storm Pegasus, even with those first 2 seasons, like bays like that, it was absolutely solid. They even made like Hell Kerbex and Hades Kerbex, and Twisted Tempo or Basalt Hirogi. They did really well with it. The main thing being during Metal Fury when they switched it up. So they made some of the bays more hollow. We call them the Hasbro versions. So, they made Hasbro Cosmic Pegasus with one piece, like Jade Jupiter, Phantom Orion, Fang Leon, Scythe Chronos. A lot of those bays they made like one piece without like the actual gimmicks and everything like we saw under TT. This is where we saw Hasbro starting to cut corners with things a bit. Instead of having like the flip gimmicks and everything and the weight and all the gimmicks and mechanics that the bays were supposed to have to, they tried to switch it up. People weren't having it. But then they put out the Hyper Blades afterwards, which were different recolors and stuff. So we saw like Hyper Blades. I used to call them Spark Effects effed up, so not colors. That was just funny. But like in general, looking back, like they were cool recolors. So we got like Cosmic Pegasus, like a Hyper Blade, like Phantom Orion, same thing. Blitz Unicorn or Blitz Striker. Same thing for Flash Sagittario. At first we didn't get one for Fang Leon, but then they put out Fang Leon during Legends. As a Hyper Blade, so that was cool. Phantom Orion, Diablo Nemesis. They put out some of the original colors for them during the Legends line that they had at the very, very end after Shogun Steel. But yeah, which was pretty cool to see that they did that. But yeah, it was one of the cases where they tried to cut corners, and it did diversify the game and such. And it's cool that they put out the original versions after, which did end up diversifying the game with like the lighter ones, because like limited format and stuff, which that was kind of cool. But it's great that they actually fixed the error that they had. But there were some bays they didn't make, like Fire Fuse Dark Helm, they still had as one piece. Fusion Hades, like how it actually had the full gimmick, or Fire Fuse Dark Helm, they never actually released it under Hasbro, which made me sad. It was that way for a couple days. Like it was the same thing for Chronos. They didn't put out like a full Hyperblade Scythe Chronos. That would have been cool to see. But that's one of the errors that they had during Metal. That was like the big error they had during Metal Fight Beyblade. And then during Sorry, the doggos are going wild. But like that was the big time thing with Metal Fury, how they tried to switch up things. But then Shogun Steel or Zero G, they did honestly really solidly. Like you talk about the synchrome system, how the bays were, switch up the stadium like a little bit. But that's like a Hasbro thing. They switch up the stadiums a bit. It's that time period. And there were a few bays they didn't include. Like I wish they would have included like Berserker Byakko, Guardian Gruus, Phantom Fenrir, like these bays that they didn't release under TT. They had a perfect moment, but they didn't. But for the most part, both companies did the Metal Saga really, really well. Now going into Burst, for the first 2 seasons, it was good. Like single layers, dual layers, honestly done very well under Takara Tomi's side as well as Hasbro's side. Same gimmicks, burst resistance, etc. Some of the bays being switched up and being even stronger under Hasbro than TT, and vice versa. But it was still very, very balanced across the entire board when it comes to the weight, the gimmicks, everything with it, with the single layers as well as the dual layer bays. And then we had like the God or Evolution bays, which same exact thing. Some bays being stronger under TT, so like their Arc Balkesh, like Hasbro's Arc Balkesh, having better burst resistance than TT's Arc Bahamut. That type of thing. Or like Sprite and Requiem, Sprig and Requiem, where we just didn't see like a painted God ship or like the metal ship on the inside, which that being a bit of a switch up, but still same weight and gimmicks and everything across the board for those seasons. But then we got to like Turbo or Cho-Z. Under TT, they had metal. They incorporated metal with the bays and such, but then Hasbro cutting corners and not incorporating the metal, switching up the weight of the discs and everything, including some of the discs, but not adding the metal to the actual bays, which that alone switched up the game big time. Hasbro went for like a more same kind of level strength across the entire board, even going way later, but they cut gimmicks after season 3 going forward. Whereas TT, you saw the difference in the power. So like, under GT and TT, they had the Gatinko weights and everything with the bays, all the gimmicks and stuff. And then under Hasbro, cutting the weight with things. And then season 5, same thing, like the chassis, like having double chassis and such with bays, switching up a lot of different gimmicks and stuff. Under TT, well, under Hasbro, they did. TT did it where they had like, the chassis, all the weight and everything with them. And season 6 with like the DB bays having like the cores, having the weight on the actual outside and stuff. But then under Hasbro, they were cutting corners when it came down to the weight and all the gimmicks and everything, to where they weren't performing at the same level as the TT bays. I've even done battles between all the different gens, like Takara versus Hasbro with all the bursts. You can go and check them out. Done my own like science with it, because collecting the bays and everything and just being real about the quality. They didn't keep up with the quality, truth be told, on the Hasbro side. They cut corners with a lot of different stuff. That's why it wasn't as popular on the Hasbro side compared to TT. But props to Hasbro, because they made a season 7, which is Quad Strike, which TT didn't do. Takara Tomy ended off at season 6, but Hasbro making season 7, I think it had a better bow on the entire series than TT did with their cliffhanger. So props to Hasbro. I'm constructive with it. I just say things as they are, and being real about it with no bias. Like they cut corners with the gimmicks with the bays on the Hasbro side, but that they ended with a season 7 to put a bow on the show better than TT did. That's where they're getting their props. With TT having more of the gimmicks and stuff that followed through with how they were in the show. Wish they would have done season 7. They showed it off. But wish they would have done like the bays and stuff, their own version for their bays that they had, which would have been really, really dope to see that end game, characters like Lane, etc. returning. But yeah, that's also what inspired my BU Plus series that I'm currently working on now, if you want to go and check it out. But major difference in the companies when it came down to things. They did have Pro Series bays, which they included some of the bays with their actual weight and such and the gimmicks, but they only had a handful out of each season. So they only did like a few Turbo bays, like Perfect Phoenix, like Judgment Joker, a few bays like that, like Command Dragon, that being like a season 4 one. And then for the season 5 bays, they only had like Brave Valtryek. Ray Luinor didn't even make it to the shelves. And Infinite Achilles, which that was a solid one that they did. But yeah, literally you see the switch up and the difference in the companies. They didn't even have that many that were Pro Series bays compared to how the actual TT bays were, and it's shown even with the battles that I've done. That's just my own science with it, you know what I mean? Everybody has their own opinions and views on it. But definitely things have struggled on the Hasbro side with things, because they have switched up things big time. So this season, or this era of Beyblade X being their point where they needed to flip it around and be like, truly doing things 1-to-1, like same stadium type, same weight for the bays and everything. And truth be told, they've done so. Like, switching up the names of the bays, like instead of Dran Sword, Sword Dran, but basically same weight, same gimmicks with all the bays, with the bits, the ratchet, everything. They're all really, really good and solid gimmicks for sure. They got the same weight and such, and they're doing very solidly with it. The Hasbro Stadium is more rectangular shaped and more compact than the TT Stadium. Um, it's rectangular shaped and oval shaped, so attack types getting startups on the ridge, but not as crazy in my view. But like a smaller stadium, they have a closer range to get those hits in. But then the TT Stadium being more square, having the circle pocket in it, which makes it where attack types can get a bigger startup going around, like having the round shape of it to glide with it and get those major hits in. But still, that they made their own stadium and stuff, Hasbro doing so, major props. And also, they're making their own exclusives. So switch ups on molds that we've seen before, but like adding to the game because they are different. So like Scythe Incendio's base mold, but it also has, it's made Tusk Mammoth. So there's Tusk Mammoth is one, Megatron's also a bay, and also Moff Gideon. Like these crossovers they've had with like Transformers, Star Wars, Marvel. It's really freaking awesome. Retooling some molds, which seeing crossovers like that are amazing. We saw like a Transformers crossover at the end of Burst, but they never actually made the actual figures. It was exclusive to the Beyblade Burst app. But them actually making bays and stuff like this to promote it and having these brands be a part of it, like it's collabs, is freaking awesome. I think that's so sick. They're doing it very solidly. The bays are like the same weight and such. Yeah, the same gimmicks and everything. They even have their own exclusives, like retooling some of these molds. So they have bays like Roar Tyranno, which is like Phoenix Wings mold switched up. Bear Scratch. Well, Savage Bear. It's Bear Scratch on a TT. But Savage Bear, etc. Like these different bays, like Yell Kong, Bite Croc, which is like a retooling of like Keel Shark or Shark Edge. And then Yell Kong being based off of Gale Wyvern or Wyvern Gale. Like that they do that is really, really cool. Incorporating different motifs and creatures, retooling some of these molds and switching them up, like adding more attack with Savage Bear as compared to Rhino Horn or Horn Rhino, which I think is really, really cool. Having their own exclusives. Even TT is making some of these exclusives that are Hasbro bays. Like they're having Knife Shinobi or Shinobi Knife, be a part of the Beyblade X video game that they have, Beyblade X Zone, which drops this month, which is really, really crazy. Bear Scratch. That way people can get like Savage Bear, the retool mold that just dropped with the double stadium set that just came out, the double extreme, stadium set. Yeah, and they have Terra Swing as a part of like this one with Nightmail, with the set that just dropped, which is Talon Terra, but they call it Terra Swing. They have different parts with it. And even like putting these layers out and such, or blades, they make different combos for them. So different combos in the TT, even the Hasbro combo being the original combo for like Knife Shinobi that Quinn Manju has in the show, which is really, really freaking dope. So yeah, you talk about product wise, the bays are 1-on-1. Like making their own exclusives on both sides, and it's freaking awesome to see. Literally balance all across the board with the game. And it's so, so good at this stage. I just want to see them keep this momentum going forward for sure. And I'll talk about that more with like things I want to see with Beyblade X going forward. But as it stands, like Hasbro doing very well compared to TT, making their own exclusives in their own way, like how TT has their own exclusives, and it's really, really good. And you talk about the show, the way they built up the show. I love how they have a different build with Bird as a character. This is spoilers for the show. Anybody who doesn't want to know, you want to click away after this. But yeah, building him up as the ultimate underdog. Barely getting any wins and such up until the very end and still going down. But then, like, the way they have, like, Common X, Multi, all these characters, like Blader X are Multi, and so much diversity with the characters. But yeah, I had to put in all the info about, like, just the bays and stuff between TT and Hasbro, like the history and such. That way you guys know that I'm not pulling this info out of my ass, that I've been here for about 13 years and seen how they've done the patterns for things and just being real about it. So yeah, but yeah, getting back into the show, I love the pacing of it. Some people might think like the pacing is kind of slow. They're basically introducing a lot of stuff with it that they did with this, and I love that they're calling them arcs. So like first season, I guess kind of the first arc, but now it's Beyblade X and still calling it Beyblade X, not switching it up or anything. There's Beyblade X Arc 2. You know what I mean? It's like how there's different animes and shows and stuff that it's like just another season of it, but they don't call it anything different. It's just still what it is. Beyblade X. So Arc 2 starting up recently. Just watch the episode. You can go and check out my reaction for them. They're really, really sick. But as for the first season, I love the pacing of it. That they had Bird as like the ultimate underdog protagonist. They have Jackson Cross or Common X, you know, or X in general, X or Caruso, whichever one you know him as, be like a protagonist. It shows that there could be like different protagonists, not just one, like how they established in Burst, like how they're different protagonists for each season. But overall, like all these protagonists, like Vault, Iga, Drum, Hikaru, Hyuga, Bell, but then even with like Metal Fight Beyblade, how there was Jinga and then Zero, and then even with the first gen, there was just Tyson, but then how it evolved after that, and it showed especially with Burst, and like especially the story with Quinn, dude, is so cool. Like the Easter egg with that, like she's only lost 2 protagonists, like that's crazy, dude. Like yeah, like I said, I'm sorry, we're in spoiler territory. I warned y'all before, but yeah, 9,999 wins, 9 losses, and the 9 losses were all against protagonists. Well, now 10 or that way, which way it shows up. But yeah, overall, I love like just the slower pace for it. Sometimes it's important to just slow down the pace and establish things, and that's what they've done with this series, like with this season, and established all the different floors and stuff, but left a lot of loose ends. That way, it's like, hey, you got all these different floors, a lot of floors we haven't seen, so it makes room for like new characters who might come in and just join in with things and start at the bottom floor and then work their way up, or like characters that are in top floors that we haven't seen yet, you know. So we talked about like the 100th floor being the top one, and like the 88th floor with things like, what about 89 through 99? All those floors, the characters that we haven't seen on those floors or anything, or the ones that are like from 50 up to like 70, like those floors and everything. Like these are open end for them to put in a lot of different characters and stuff. When it comes to the story, a lot of loose ends with things, because Beyblade X still being young. Season 2 is going to be dope. But overall, it's really, really sick. I love the pacing with it, and even how they built up the series, like towards the finale. They're not being like a real antagonist. It's mainly just like I said, spoiler territory if you're still watching, But like how Chrome became kind of antagonist at the end because of like his desire to beat X, and he went to the dark side a little bit, and like cracked X's base and damaged them at the end. So that was like the most antagonist thing for sure. But him not being a full blown antagonist, not trying to take over the world or anything, but he's trying to like be the best. But he went down a darker path at the very end to do so. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that Louis role. Like he had like that man to beat role, like how Louis had with the first season of Burst, being similar to that. But Louis using some tactics like, literally slicing Shu's eye with a freaking with Spriggan. That's how it happened, is in the show. Like he put that slash there, man. I just had to snag something real quick. But yeah. Like basically like the man to beat role, but then just showing off his crazy power, like Chrome being at the top, and then like his obsession with X leading to like an absolutely insane battle for the ages and the finale and everything. And it's really dope how they built it up. You see elements of like how they paid homage to Metal Fight Beyblade, how they paid homage to Burst, even Beyblade X being its own thing, even with like the final battle and stuff, or how they're doing this, even with their sets. Like some of the sets, you see like Bear Scratch, that set. That reminds me so much of the Rock Orso set that we saw during Metal Fight Beyblade. Free spinning part in the middle comes with a Bear Bay. Free spinning part in the middle comes with a Bear Bay. That type of thing. How we're getting a customized set. How we just had a customized set, which is similar to like how we had customized sets during Burst. Even like some of the customized sets that we had during Metal Fight Beyblade. Like the El Drago set, Perseus set, etc. Like doing that type of thing. They're paying homage to things that we've seen before, but also make their own unique things. Like how we have random booster selects now, how we've seen a random booster before, but random booster selects being their own thing. Even like the random booster, the small random booster that they had with the remakes, and how they're doing remakes from like Beyblade Burst, as well as Plastic Gen, as well as Metal Fight. And it's so awesome to see that, man. We've gotten one Metal Fight one at this time, that being Lightning El Drago, that's dropped. We know that there's going to be a set. Well, first things first. Dromzer and Drigger, both for Plastic Gen. Lightning El Drago for Metal Fight. And then that's going to be coming in March. So that one coming with Storm Pegasus, Metal Fight. Coming with Dragoon S, which is really dope, Plastic Gen. Recolor for Drawn Sword, well, the holographic sticker version, which is pretty cool. And then also we got Victory Valkyrie in it, so we're seeing a Burst remake with Beyblade X as well, that dropping. So yeah, maybe that'll mean we'll get like another remake or such, but that's gonna be in the area of things I want to see going forward, you know, which I'll discuss in a separate video because this one's already long enough. But my overall thoughts for it: the show really, really solid. Some people might think it's like a slower pace. There's not as much action as we've seen with like first series, like, you know, like Plastic Giant, Metal Fight, or Burst. But it still was very, very solid in the way they built it up, man. They added a big time level of realism with it, which is one thing I love, is like becoming a pro, winning through the amateurs, becoming a pro, finding a sponsor. Like, you get a sponsor and they back you with stuff, which freaking honor. Never take that for granted and such. It's an honor being a sponsor. Anybody reaches out and be a sponsor for anyone, that's for sure. And it kind of being that way in real life, like having a chance of like maybe having base sponsors. Maybe you have like the companies out here like the Portal Zero or Mall of Toys or such that like sponsor these different bladers and such. You know what I mean? Like, if it got to that point where it's that popular to like they're all raking in things that much more because Beyblade is so big, like it kind of is that way if you think about it, you know. Like Bays and Bricks, like I said, Mall of Toys, Beyblade Premiere, all these different, you know, like companies or groups that like are part of Beyblade and going and even like sponsoring folks in a way, like, you know, sending products and stuff. Like, it's crazy. Like, they added that level of realism. Then also adding like Baytubers as actual bladers in the show too. But then also adding like adults with it big time, like, you know, Quinn and other adults being a part of it. Show them it's not only like for kids demographic, it's also for like adults and older folks and such. It's for everybody of any age. It's a fun game, and showing it like as a sport, which it should be considered a freaking sport. It takes skills to like Beyblade. You know, having the knowledge of all the different parts, launching, the angles, everything with it, even knowledge on the show. Takes a lot, for sure. I'm honored that y'all think I'm a freaking legend, for sure. Even doing this like 13 years, got a lot of knowledge and stuff up here. That's why I explained everything in the beginning part, because I've seen the cycle. You do this for 13 years, you see the cycle of how things go. And being here long enough and seeing it shows how hopefully things will go and how things have worked. But Beyblade actually started off, I'd say, is one of the strongest seasons balance-wise, for sure. There's hardly any bad parts. You can't even say, like, really bad parts. There are parts that people don't like Quake, which still could be used, and Metal Needle being the big-time one, which is, of course, be careful not to, like, slam it into your stadium because it might make it dent. But, like, Metal Needle still having some stamina with it because it's the only metal bit at this current moment. You know what I mean? Like, imagine they make Metal Rush. I'd love to see them make Metal Rush and some other things, but that's going into like things I want to see, which I'll save that for a different video. Talking about things going forward. But overall, love the balance, love the show, love everything about Beyblade X, and it's still young, man. We've got 2 episodes for Arc 2 out currently, and it's going to be awesome. And stay tuned because I'll make a video talking about my hopes and such for Beyblade X going forward from season or Arc 2, if you will, onwards. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for my thoughts on Beyblade X Season 1 and how Beyblade X has been so far. Gonna make a video, like I said, talking about my hopes for it and things I want to see. But yeah. Anyways, hope y'all enjoyed. If you did, be sure to slice the ever-loving crap out of that like button down below. Let me know how I did. If you're new to my channel, definitely be sure to subscribe for some epic content because I upload daily. And if you haven't already, be sure to ring that bell by my channel name to be notified whenever I upload a video. So yeah, guys, till next time, it's your boy Kimbo signing off. See you guys later. Thanks so much for watching. Until then, stay awesome and go shoot. Let it rip. I'm up out of here.